and whiter whites. There are no triumphal personal qualities and no triumphant outcomes, just flawed individuals who, at a time of what Bonhoeffer referred to as moral twilight, felt compelled to do the right thing as they saw it. That is a lesser triumph than we might wish for in dangerous times, but it was then, and is now, probably the only triumph we can reasonably expect. This story is, at its heart, a tragedy, and like all great tragedies, it involves personal flaws, the misjudgments of the mighty, and a malevolent fate. There is individual pity and suffering, and a deal of personal stupidity here. But, and herein lies the history, since these were human beings of consequence, their personal decisions affected lives and events far beyond their circle and their time. The two central historical questions posed by this book are stark. Did the Second World War have to happen? And if it did it have to end with a peace which enslaved Eastern Europe? My purpose is not to provide definitive answers here, but rather to present some facts which are not generally known, or at least not taken account of, and place these against the conventional view of the origins, progress, and outcomes of World War II. In reading this book, you may be struck, as I was in writing it, by the similarities between what happened in the build-up to World War II and the age in which we now live. Then as now, nationalism and protectionism were on the rise, and democracies were seen to have failed. People hungered for the government of strong men. Those who suffered most from the pain of economic collapse felt alienated and turned towards simplistic solutions and strident voices. Public institutions, conventional politics, and the old establishments were everywhere mistrusted and disbelieved. Compromise was out of fashion. The centre collapsed in favour of the extremes. The normal order of things didn't function. Change, even revolution, was more appealing than the status quo. And fake news, built around the convincing untruth, carried more weight in the public discourse than rational arguments and provable facts. Painting a lie on the side of a bus and driving it around the country would have seemed perfectly normal in those days. Nevertheless, I have found myself inspired in writing this story. It has proved to me that even in such terrible times, there were some who were prepared to stand up against the age, even when their cause was hopeless, and even at the cost of their lives. I hope that you will find that inspiration here, too. Prologue. To the millions whose votes helped make Adolf Hitler Chancellor of Germany, he was the hero who would rescue them from the humiliations of the Versailles Treaty and the shaming chaos that followed. John Maynard Keynes, who attended the 1919 peace conference, condemned Versailles afterwards in unforgiving and uncannily prophetic terms. If we aim at the impoverishment of Central Europe, vengeance, I dare say, will not limp. Nothing can then delay for very long the forces of reaction and the despairing convulsions of revolution, before which the horrors of the late German war will fade into nothing, and which will destroy, whoever is victor, the civilization and the progress of our generation. Keynes was not the only person to understand that in the punitive conditions imposed by Versailles lay the seeds of another explosion of German militarism. Others referred to it as the peace built on quicksand. Under Clause 231 of the treaty, the War Guilt Clause, Germany was deprived of all her colonies, 80% of her pre-war fleet, almost half her iron production, 16% of coal output, 13% of her territory, including the great German-speaking port of Danzig, and more than a tenth of her population. To add to these humiliations, the victorious Allies also planted a deadly economic time bomb beneath what was left of the German economy. This took the form of war reparations amounting to some $32 billion to be